Hello and welcome to a special edition of Starside Chat. My name is Aaron. With me as always is Zach. How's it going, Zach?
Good, because it is Summer Games Fest
Yes,
week.
it is fake E3 week. We are convening early. We usually record on Saturdays, but we decided to record on Thursday today because this is directly after the first couple events of Summer Games Fest. Is it called Summer Games Fest Live? What's the main event called? Is it just Summer Games Fest? Kickoff?
Yeah, I mean, Summer Games Fest is more like the umbrella.
Yeah.
I do think it's Summer Games Fest Live is maybe the...
So
I feel like they used to call it like opening night or whatever.
well, isn't opening night Gamescom?
Yeah, maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Regardless, Keighley's big 2-hour thing happened, and then there was the Day of the Devs that happened directly after that, and then there was an hour break, and then there was a very short Devolver Digital thing that was 30 minutes and like 4 games. But we're convening today so that we can talk about all this, and then there will be more to talk about this weekend. But yeah, I don't know. We're coming in pretty hot. I don't think either of us took super extensive notes on things, so we might jump around a little bit. But just like off the top, what was your favorite thing that you saw at Summer Games Fest opening night live kickoff event? Unnamed kickoff event.
Yeah, that's a good question. I was surprised to see that Genshin Impact studio you mentioned with that Zenless Zone Zero game had another game. It's not just Zenless
that also
Zone
was
Zero.
surprising to me. They're really cranking them out.
I mean, they must have made so much money on Genshin Impact
sure.
that they're just like, go ahead, go nuts, make as many games as you want.
It's a powerhouse.
I'm kind of curious how similar they're going to be, because like every now and then, like I remember years ago, there was this like popular sort of mobile, like sort of MMO RPG that was like fantasy based. And that game like kicked off and did really well. So they made like essentially a carbon copy of that was like space sci-fi. And then they made a carbon copy of that was like some other theme. And they just made like a whole bunch of those. And they were basically the same game, but they just had like a different skin on them. And so I'm almost wondering if maybe that's the direction they're going with this. But
yeah, I don't know. So the zone of Zenless, whatever it is.
Zenless Zone Zero.
Yeah, that's the one we were talking about, I think, last week or the week before. I'm interested in that. It seems like you can be a bear with a rocket launcher and see where that goes. The one they talked
the
about...
combat did look cool.
It looked very cool.
Say.
The one they talked about today was in space. It was called like... what was it?
Honkai Star Rail?
Star Rail, yeah.
I don't know how you say it.
Some sort of train space game?
Space RPG, anime art style. I mean, that was the takeaway.
It's interesting.
Probably coming after Zenless Zone Zero?
I think so. I think that's... Zenless Zone Zero is, I think, the next thing they have queued up.
Well, and interestingly, their whole thing is like, this is going to be on every platform, including mobile. And it's a little mind-blowing because you go, well, they've essentially made... with Genshin Impact, they essentially made Breath of the Wild that you can play on a mobile.
It is crazy. Yeah. I think I'm inching closer and closer. I know I say this every week now, but I'm inching closer and closer to downloading Genshin Impact. But I've not done it yet.
You should, and you should try it out. It is free to play, so you can try it out and then like report back on your findings from that.
So let's start this off.
I mean, I can go down the list. I did actually try to make a list of everything that happened or they showed. And we don't have to talk about everything in detail, but we can just sort of rapid fire kind of list them off, and then you can stop me when I get to something interesting.
Yeah, so Street Fighter 6. That was the very first thing, and they announced Guile. So that's cool.
Which I think everybody expected, but yeah that's cool.
Now we get to see his like modern look or whatever. Aliens Dark Descent. What did you think of this?
I feel like everybody went with like sort of a sci-fi horror thing. Like that's like the hot genre right now.
I think a lot of headlines this coming week will say like Summer Games Fest all about space games this year.
I don't know. I'm not a huge Aliens fan.
I agree.
But I think that what was it, that Alien like survival game?
Alien
where it's,
Isolation?
Like first person. Isolation. That one was the one that I think is the coolest.
Yeah.
I watched somebody play like through that almost the entire game, and it was pretty captivating. I don't think it's something I would play, but I don't know, kind of cool.
Yeah,
Coming next year.
This seems like a Left 4 Dead style game, kind of, where you're like in a. I would assume it's like a team co-op style thing, and you have to get into a place, and there's
Which
also
I feel
zombies.
like they did recently.
Yes, I think wasn't Colonial Marines like that?
There was an Aliens game just within like the last year or two.
Yeah, I can't remember what that was
like
called.
Co-op survival. It was basically Left 4 Dead, but third person.
It came and went.
Yeah, it came and went, and nobody was too into it. It seemed like.
Callisto Protocol, on the other hand, I'm not super into scary games, but the production values of this thing were off the charts.
Yeah, so this is former Dead Space developer. It seems to have similar like dismemberment, where you can like shoot them in like the limbs, and sort of if you hit them in the kneecap, you basically take their leg out,
and
they'll
you
fall
get
down,
dismembered.
But they'll still, like crawl after you.
Also, like your player character is also
very
graphically getting dismembered.
very gory. Like Mortal Kombat style, like death animations.
Upsettingly graphic.
Yes.
It's
but
very
also
much
seem like maybe you have some like controls-esque like telekinesis ability.
Well, that was the case in Dead Space as well. You got your little time freeze thing. So I mean, it's very Dead Space. You've got the thing on the back of your neck that's your health. Like you said, you can shoot people's limbs and they fall off. Dead Space also had the very graphic death animations where you just like watched a thing kill you. I don't remember what those were called, Deadites, or what were they called, necromorphs? I don't remember. But anyway, whatever the things were called in Dead Space, I'm sure they will have a name for these things in Callisto Protocol.
Yeah.
But it is like just like super next gen, high fidelity Dead Space.
It was maybe the most next gen looking thing that they showed the entire show.
Well, you say that. What did you think about this Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 extended gameplay trailer?
It looks like Call of Duty.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I don't know.
I mean,
it's coming out October 28th, but I don't know. I'm so out on Call of Duty.
Yeah.
This didn't really do anything for me.
Great graphics, but also like, yeah, I've seen this a million times. You're like going on a mission with a bunch of people, and you have to like clear out doors and corners and things like that. I
think it would have been more interesting to see gameplay from some sort of multiplayer mode, rather than the campaign. I mean, it's cool that it's there, because I think, wasn't it Call of Duty that maybe took the campaign away one year and everybody got upset about it, and so they brought it back?
It was only multiplayer.
So, I mean, it's cool that it's there. It probably should be there, but like that, I feel like these days, that's not what sells Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Next up, there was Flashback 2.
Yes. Do you have any affinity for this? Did you play with Flashback back in the day?
I did not. It looked cool, though.
I think I watched, there was like a YouTuber that I maybe used to follow that did a playthrough of it, and it seemed, I may be remembering something else. It was another game that had a similar art style to this, where you were running around and like the jump animation was very slow and you really had to time your jumps. But this looked interesting. As I was watching, I was like, man, I don't know how easy this will be to control, because the perspective kept changing. Like it was 2D for a while, and then it was 3D, and then it was head on. So I don't know. I'm interested to see this played more, but I've never heard of a Flashback. I'm trying to remember what that thing was that I watched on YouTube. I don't think it was Flashback, now that I'm looking at more pictures of this. But yeah, I don't know. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know anything about the franchise, but seemed interesting to me as well.
Hit me with that next one.
Witchfire. So this is coming to the Epic Game Store in early access soon. It looked to me like Destiny.
Yeah.
Like first person shooting, like just that sort of quality of like smooth animations, but like not sci-fi.
It's coming to the Epic Game Store in early access soon.
Yeah. So this, another one of the things that looked interesting to me, I'm
agree.
very curious to see like more from this game.
It looked cool. I liked all the weird witch guns. It kind of reminded me of Peacemaker. Did you ever play that?
No.
Peacemaker was a game that came out kind of like, it was a little similar to Serious Sam in that it was kind of just hordes of enemies running at you, but you had weird old style guns. One of them was like I think like a stake shooter, like a vampire stake shooter. But it had that feel for me, except like Peacemaker was very bare bones, similar to Serious Sam, where levels were giant because a ton of things were running at you. And this seemed more definitely like it's another one of those next gen games. We're in the next generation. Everything looks super nice. Everything's running on Unreal 5. So it looks nice. I might check this out if it's
super
like
smooth frame rate for sure.
If it's a cheap game, or if I can somehow get it for free, if it's on like Game Pass or something, if I subscribe to that, this could be something I would, especially if it has good co-op. If you can play this with a friend, I think that would be great.
Yeah, I'm curious if it's like linear or if it's like level based or like what the deal is.
Yeah.
But I definitely liked the look of the game. I liked how smooth the animations were, and so yeah, I will definitely check this out.
Fort Solis, was that the next thing?
Yeah, so this is a sci-fi story-driven mystery thriller starring Troy Baker and I forget his name, but the guy from Red Dead Redemption 2.
Roger Clark.
Yes. They came up on stage after the trailer and talked to Jeff Keighley for a little while about the game, and he and Troy Baker said that they pitched him the game saying it was like Dead Space meets Duncan Jones's Moon, which is I think is a really interesting combo.
I'm glad that you were listening to it. I muted for all of the weird interview segments.
Yeah, so I thought that was a really interesting
That is
combo,
very cool.
So
I like this. It seems like there's not going to be a lot of combat. It's just going to be like problem or puzzle solving, detective work, which I think is a very interesting idea.
Yeah, like what if it's like what was that game where you're on this like watchtower in like Yellowstone Park or whatever?
Oh, yes. Oh man, what was that called? Yeah, it has the guy from Mad Men in it. Firewatch.
Yeah, Firewatch. Yeah, what if it's like that but a little bit more sinister and like in space?
I'm very into that, and probably will have a better ending than that game.
Yeah, so I mean, very curious about this
Very
game.
cool. Now, this next one, had you heard of Routine?
I had not.
I had heard of it. Actually, when we were first making this YouTube channel, I don't remember if I did pitch this to you or not, but I wanted to do a series on games where I wasn't sure whatever happened to them, but I could only really think of Routine. Maybe there was like one other. But when this game came out, I feel like this was like 10 years ago, I watched a trailer for this, and it like blew my mind. It was so cool. I'll try to find some old trailers from when it was first announced, but it was like in space. What I understood was it was going to be a run-based game where you would be doing multiple runs in this area, kind of like a roguelike. But what really I really enjoyed the like computers in it. Like all the computer screens were super old school, kind of Alien Isolation-esque. And you had that gun you can like look through and see the sight through was in the original game. And you didn't really ever see the robots in the first trailer that I saw. But I remember it was like, you couldn't really tell what was going on. You knew something was chasing you. And you were in like knee-deep water in whatever you were, this space station. And you could hear it like running through the water really fast because it was robotic. And it was great. But then nothing ever came of it. I think I like bookmarked the website of the developer, and the developer was like just two guys, or like maybe a team of three people in England, and they would give like updates sometimes, but then they just sort of stopped. So I think they just like got busy or decided game development wasn't for them. I thought it was never coming back. And so when I saw this, I was like I didn't know what it was until he pulled that gun up with the television screen on the back of it. I was like, oh my God, this is Routine. But
do you know about that gun? Do you actually shoot at them? Because it almost for a second seemed to me like that one like spooky horror game where you just have a camera, you don't actually have like a weapon,
Well,
and
that
you
was
just like hold it up to like see stuff.
it was an interesting conceit because in the original trailer they never really showed you the robots, and so it was like really kind of shaky camera, and when the main character held the gun up, you pretty much were only looking through the television screen. So like, and it was all like staticky and kind of like low resolution. So when he was looking at the enemies, you couldn't even really tell what they were, and it made it even creepier. Now you can very clearly see they're super high resolution robot android things. But I don't know. I'm interested to see. It was also, I remember you had like a handheld computer thing that you pulled like a big connector out of, and it had like a big thick cable, and he like stuck it into a computer, and you could like click around on the computer screen, and the UI of the computers was really fascinated me. But this is actually, I think, my game of the show, because I was just
Oh, really?
I was blown away that this was coming back. I audibly gasped when I realized what it was.
Yeah, I guess you would have to if it like was unveiled like that long ago and just like went completely dark, and now it's like suddenly back again.
I think it was like in like 2011 or 2012. It was like right when I moved up to Cedar Rapids, I feel like.
No, it almost kind of made me think of Westworld, because it's that idea
Yeah.
of like evil robots sort of chasing you, like the original Westworld.
Oh, yeah,
like,
yeah.
A big part of that movie is just like the main character trying to flee from this like robot that's out to like kill him.
Well, who knows what this game is now? Like, I believe it was pitched as sort of a roguelike where you're constantly going into this abandoned moon base, but it could very well just be like a story-driven narrative game now. I'll be very interested to see more information about it, but yeah, I was very excited for this.
Do you like The Rock?
Not anymore, I guess. Like, I used to really enjoy following him on Instagram, and I liked his movies, like the Fast and the Furious movies he was really good in, and there was like maybe a 2 or 3 year period where I was all about The Rock. And then he started kind of like shilling his tequila on his Instagram, and I was like, well, I don't really want to see this. And then he like came out and said a couple of like kind of weird things on Twitter where he was on the wrong side of issues. And I was kind of like, well, maybe he just doesn't know what he's talking about. He seems like a nice guy. But now it seems like he's just a businessman, and I am not into it.
Yeah, he like showed up in a pretty bizarre, like clearly recorded video where he rambled for like several minutes to basically promote some energy drink.
Zoa.
And I was like, what is this? And then it suddenly became like him promoting the Black Adam movie that's coming out later this year.
The craziest part about this is that, so did you watch that Black Adam trailer when it came out on like yesterday or the day before?
No.
I watched it and it was fine. The one they showed at the Game Awards was edited down in a crazy way. It was like half the length, where like scenes were like 1 or 2 seconds longer in the original trailer, and they cut out like just silent parts. It was like that thing they used to do, or people revealed that they would like speed up episodes of Seinfeld so that they could play more commercials in a 30-minute period, you know? It was very similar to that, where they like cut this trailer down to where it was like maybe like 3/4 of the length, and then there was another trailer directly after it, and he didn't really even talk. Like Keeley was just like moved on and talked about the trailer after it.
Yeah, it was really weird. But yeah, I think The Rock has reached a point of oversaturation.
I agree.
Where it's to the point where I kind of like, I watched that trailer and I was like, this is just The Rock. This isn't whatever this DC character is.
I don't think it was scripted either, because there was a part where he was like, yeah, you know what? Also, you know, cheese pizzas. I'm always delivering cheese pizzas. And it was like, what is he talking about? This makes no sense.
For the first like 30 seconds of it, I had no idea what was happening. I was like, is he just here to like be The Rock and promote energy drinks? Like, why is this happening?
And that was really the only like movie thing that, I mean, it's Summer Games Fest. I don't really know. Keeley was probably just like, well, I got to get some star power. I know I The Rock seems to be super willing to advertise anywhere, so why not?
Then they probably paid Keighley a pretty
yeah.
good amount to get their
I'm
trailer in.
I
Summer
also
Games Fest.
I don't know anything about Fortnite. What is the Foundation? Why is The Rock the Foundation in Fortnite?
I didn't know what that meant.
So who knows? But definitely the weirdest part of the show.
Yeah, and then they moved on to a promo for Outriders DLC World Slayer that's coming, I think, later this month. And then Nintendo had like a sizzle reel where they showed off a few games that we already knew about.
That was very weird. It's interesting that they allowed Keighley to have that little sizzle reel, but it did not add anything. Like there wasn't any new information. It was just like 2 or 3 games
It's like
back
one
to
of
back.
those quick little like recap things they do at the end of a show after they've like announced a bunch of stuff, and they just like do a sizzle reel where they show it all again, but in like little clips back and forth. It was like that, but like without the preceding like here's the trailers.
What do you think about Stormgate?
I'm not really an RTS guy.
Yeah,
but
is it an RTS?
Yeah, they were talking about how. So you probably didn't hear this because you mute the like talking segments.
Can't handle this.
He was talking about how this is an RTS from former Blizzard people, like people who worked on. Oh gosh,
StarCraft.
I'm blanking. Yeah, StarCraft.
Interesting.
So yeah, I mean, if you like RTSs, this is probably one to watch out for. There's a beta coming next year, but interesting that it's a beta from an RTS from like former StarCraft developers. So.
Yeah, one of the best.
Yeah. Then Highwater coming out this year at some point. No specific date given. It's an indie adventure strategy game about climate change, I guess.
Yeah, it seems like kind of a road story where like you've got a boat and you're slowly collecting people, and I think you're probably trying to get to some place that's safe. There's like a radio broadcast at the beginning of the trailer saying like, hey, there's a rumor that all the super rich are trying to get off this world and they're going to launch into outer space. And then they start playing this original song, I think, for this game. But I don't know, maybe you're trying to get to a rocket ship or something.
Yeah, I mean, the art style looked kind of cool, but I didn't get a good sense of what you were doing in the game.
I think it's mostly going to be a walk around style game.
Yeah, it does seem like one of those games that's built around the idea of, okay, climate change is an issue and like corporate greed is an issue. Let's just like shape a game around those ideas.
Speaking of interesting graphics, what do you think of this American Arcadia?
I did like the graphics of this.
Yeah.
So this is some sort of like, what is that Jim Carrey movie? Gosh, I'm like forgetting the name of
Truman Show?
Today. Truman Show. This is a Truman Show game, basically, where it seemed like there's somebody on the outside, but it seems like you're in some sort of dome thing where they're like curating this experience for this one
the
person.
perfect city.
And he's like trying to get out, but they keep like, and it's all televised. So it's also like a TV show, apparently. Interesting idea. They said it was coming soon, but they were not more specific than that.
Yeah, I'm a little interested in this. It was kind of giving me, I mean, it's not sinister at all. I feel like it's very bright colors, but a little bit it was reminding me of Inside just a little bit because it's kind of a side scroller at times.
Yeah.
And it seems like it will be one of those things where you're progressing through this narrative story, but it is kind of a side scrolling deal. So if it is like that, I could maybe be interested in this. I would love another. And I'm waiting for that Somerville, which, by the way, I guess we should say this now. None of our predictions came true.
It's true. They released, I think it was maybe Keighley released earlier this week. Probably even like the day I finally uploaded that podcast that we recorded on Saturday. And he was like, don't be disappointed. Like, calibrate your expectations.
Yeah.
This is mostly stuff that we already know about. And so at that point, it was just like, oh man,
Yeah.
I just uploaded a podcast where we had a bunch of predictions for like all these crazy new things they were going to announce. And now pretty much he's confirming that none of that's going to be true.
Let's talk about this next thing. Did it fool you? Because I got to tell you, I was completely fooled by this.
Oh, really? You weren't anticipating Goat Simulator 3?
No, I for sure thought, like, they did a good job of pretending that it was Dead Island 2. And I was like, man, this is a crazy... Because I was primed for that because Routine had just been revealed. I was like, man, he's getting a lot of old-style games. But then, all of a sudden, it was Goat Simulator 3, which I was very... I laughed at it because it really, it got me. And...
It was a funny trailer,
yeah.
I'll give them that. And I did, like, my initial thought was, ooh, are they going back to Dead Island?
Yeah.
Like, is that happening? And then goats started appearing. I was like, oh, nope.
I'm interested in this. I never played the first one, but who knows what crazy things they're going to... It had a long tail, Goat Simulator did. I think it's funny that they called it Goat Simulator 3 when Goat Simulator 2 does not exist.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't catch that.
When you Google Goat Simulator 2, Google, like, the first question it asks is, like, does Goat Simulator 2 exist? And then if you drop that down, it just says no. Goat Simulator 3 is the next game in the series.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I would check this out. I'm definitely going to watch people play it on YouTube because I'm sure it's going to be insane.
Yeah.
I did that. That's mostly how I interacted with Goat Simulator, is I just watched a ton of people I follow play it and laugh at it. But I might actually check this out if it's cheap, because I know Goat Simulator is always like super discounted whenever there's a Steam sale.
Mm-hmm.
Midnight Suns.
Do you care about superhero games?
Not really. I will say that I have an affinity for these like strategy style, like fire. How do you say it? Firaxis. I want to say Firaxis. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the alien one? He just talked about it on the show. Enemy Unknown. XCOM.
Oh, yeah, XCOM.
I was big into the old style XCOM, like way back in the day, the one that came out in like the 90s. I never played the new ones, but I liked watching them be played just because the strategy involved is very interesting to me. But I probably will not play this. I don't super care about superhero games. What about you? The Hulk is in it. He's got horns.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably more interested in this than the DC Gotham Knights game that's also coming out.
Spoilers for
I
later.
Think they showed something, but I don't anticipate playing this game either. I don't know that. Like, I want to play that Mario and Rabbids game, but I don't know that I'm huge on that XCOM style of strategy games. Though I do like some kind of strategy games, like Divinity Original Sin 2.
Yes, that's a great example, actually. Yeah, that's
kind of a strategy game that I enjoyed. So, I can enjoy those on occasion, but it's not like a genre I'm super into.
What's up next?
Cuphead DLC coming June 30th. Finally put a release date on that. Neon White also finally got a release date, June 16. That game looks crazy.
Yeah, it looks crazy. Yeah, I thought this already came out, but I guess it has not.
It's just been so long since they announced it that it's one of those games that kind of got forgotten about a little bit.
What about this Midnight Fight Express? How did this seem to you? One guy, one Polish father.
Crazy that one
Polish father
developed it. It did say they flashed up these little title cards that said co-writer of Destiny 2, The Witch Queen, and the stuntman of God of War 2018, which I didn't understand. Like, there's one person development team. Like,
I don't know what's going on with that.
Yeah, I don't know how that adds up, but regardless, there's a PC demo going live soon, if not already. And I don't know, what'd you think?
It seemed fine. Not something I'm super interested in. The art style was cool, I guess, but this isn't just another one that I was just like, all right, this is fine, this is good filler. It's not offensive to me.
Yeah, I was not anti this game, but I'm also not like rushing to add this to my wish list.
You know what seems crazy is Warframe. What is going on in that game?
I have no clue, and it's still going. I remember them showing this as like a free to play game, like back when I think the PS4 and Xbox One were first coming out,
It has
and
continued to be supported. It's got a
it's yeah,
ton of
they've
content.
stuck with it. And but these days, I feel like because it is like this ongoing thing. I don't know, like if you were to log in to Warframe for the first time today, like I don't know what it would look like.
Yeah.
Would you still have to like run through all this stuff from like day one Warframe?
Well, because like I believe it started out as a thing where you would drop into missions similar to strikes in Destiny, and like that was how you interacted with the game. And there was maybe like a hub world where you like talk to NPCs. But then I believe a couple years ago they created like a patrol area where you could just like go out into the world, even more like Destiny. And now there's like a horse you can ride that's a robot. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I am out of the loop when it comes to Warframe, but it's still going strong, I guess. So
Then we got to
good for them.
the Hoyoverse corner where we talked about this earlier, but that Honkai Star Rail and then Zenless Zone Zero. Both of these were intriguing to me, I have to say. Having not dipped my
Yeah,
toe yet into their
they
universes.
did look cool. So I will see. I'll like keep an eye on this and see how they come out. But
Shredder's Revenge, is this something you would pick up if it was on Game Pass, perhaps? Oh no, this is a PlayStation exclusive.
is it a PlayStation exclusive? I think it's coming to Switch.
Oh, is it? Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. It is coming to Switch. Is this something you're interested in?
Kind of. It's coming out. They finally put a release date on it. I think previously they were just saying summer. So next week,
Yeah.
as we're recording this, June 16th.
There are a couple of things that are coming out June 16th, I realized. There were like 2 or 3 games that said they were coming out June 16th.
Yeah, this and that Neon White game we just talked
Yeah.
about. But yeah, I want the soundtrack. Even if I end up not playing the game, like the soundtrack for this game. Every time I watch gameplay or like a trailer, I'm like, oh, this is like classic, like Super NES music that is great. But I'm not like a super, TMNT fan. It was like one of those things that I was like certainly aware of as a kid in the 90s, but like I was never like a huge fan of it. But like, I don't know, old school brawlers, every now and then I can enjoy them. And just for that music, I don't know, maybe I will pick it up and play
They
it.
announced, are you excited that they revealed that you can play as Casey Jones?
Again, I'm not that familiar with TMNT. It was just like one of those things that I was vaguely aware of growing up. So I don't have like a ton of nostalgia for the franchise or the series, but maybe I will pick it up and play it.
What's up next?
Super People, a battle royale.
Yes. So this came out, this was in early access for a long time. I feel like it came out like a year ago, maybe not that long ago, but I was watching people play it on Twitch. Seems like PUBG, but you are collecting like pills or like power-ups that make you more like you have crazy powers, like you can jump super far or teleport or do a bunch of crazy things. But it's getting a console release, I guess, or what was the main news about this?
It was not clear to me, but I also didn't know that this game had come out previously. So
Maybe it's still in early access, but I feel like everybody was playing it, like 6 months. It was a while ago, and then everyone kind of shifted over to playing Apex and other stuff. But it kind of fell by the wayside. I guess they're having a content drop, or I don't know what the deal is. But this seems fine.
something new. And then they showed DLC for Humankind, and also I think it's coming out on like other platforms. Was this a Stadia like timed exclusive? Because this came out
Possibly.
last year.
Yeah, so now it's coming out on, I think, everything. I think even Switch.
Yeah.
No, not Switch.
So if you like that like Civilization style game, this is one to check out.
One Piece?
Do you
Is
like
that-
One Piece?
I will say that I want to like One Piece. I've watched the first like 70 episodes and then I kind of fell off of it, but I appreciate it and I am interested in its lore. And I think it is a good show, but it is also over 1,000 episodes.
Yeah,
Um,
that's it's so daunting that I think that's why I've not picked it up.
but I do think it's cool and I like it. And this game is interesting to me, but I probably will not play it just because I am not like when I stopped watching it, the crew of I don't even remember the name of the ship, did not include what appears to be a living skeleton named Brooks, or I don't know who that haired girl is. Her name was like Robin, I think. I don't know who any of these people are. The last person to join the crew when I was watching was, man, to talk about One Piece lore makes you sound like an insane person. But the last person that joined the crew when I was watching was a reindeer who ate a human fruit and became human and was named Tony Chopper, and became the medic for the people on the ship. And that's kind of where I dropped off. Not because I thought that was crazy, but I just had other things going on.
I mean, I want you to say more One Piece things just because it cracks me up.
It's a crazy show, I have to say. But I don't know. I'm interested. I think that that other open world game where you were playing as just Luffy D Monkey, which is the name of the main character, or no, Monkey D Luffy, seemed cool and people seemed to like it. You're a rubber guy, although actually you're not a rubber guy. But yeah. Do you have any interest in this? Do you care at all?
Not particularly, but it's yeah, like you said, I think it's probably a cool show, but it's like there's so many episodes.
Yeah.
It's like, where do I begin? Like I'm for sure not going to get all the way through this.
Yeah. What's next? Soul Hacker
Mario
2?
Striker.
Oh, yes,
Battle
Mario Strikers,
League,
yes.
That popped up, and it was just like, didn't they already do a Nintendo thing?
Weird, yeah.
But here's
It is
this
weird.
trailer for a game that's out tomorrow as we're recording this, June 10th. It was interesting to me that they referred to it as, it was like, it's not exactly this wording, but it was like soccer-like game.
Yeah. Well,
It
because
was
there's
not
no
like-
bombs in soccer.
Well, sure, but I did play. There's like a free demo you can download, and I tried playing through the tutorial of it. There is a lot to the tutorial.
Really?
It is, yeah. It's like many stages of like try to understand this mechanic and this mechanic. It was too much for me. I do not think I will play this game. Unfortunately, it was an awful lot. But I know people love Mario Strikers, so.
Hit me with that next
What
one.
did you think of Metal Hellsinger, a rhythm shooter with metal music?
I don't super love metal music, I have to say, so
Yeah,
this will be a pass for
same.
me. But I appreciate the guy who was talking to camera seemed like he was having a good time. So good for him.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably going to appeal to a certain sect of people that do like metal music. But it's if they released a DLC where you could put in any kind of music, I don't know how difficult that would be. That would maybe grab my interest if I could put in like a weird K-pop song or something to kill demons to. But
Yeah, that would be interesting. It's one of those things where it's like, it might be really hard
Yeah.
for them to like get influencers on like Twitch and YouTube to like pick this up and like
Ooh.
get people interested in it. Just
that's a
because
good point.
if that's copyrighted music, like what do you do?
Yeah, you can't really monetize that. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Unless they just like decide, all right, the whole game soundtrack, it's up for grabs, it's free to use, just have fun. I don't know. Then they showed The Quarry, which is, I believe, out now. People were, or very soon, like people were playing it and talking. I remember seeing people talk about it on Twitter,
Yeah.
saying that it was like actually really cool and really good. It's a spiritual successor to Until Dawn.
Yeah, very
So it's
similar
sort of-
to that, I believe, in gameplay mechanics at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah, that kind of story-driven game, kind of a horror game. And then they showed Nightingale. This is a game I'm actually kind of interested in. I don't know if it will necessarily be to my liking, but this is from Aaron. This is Aaron Flynn's new studio. I forget the name of it. Starts with an I.
Inflection.
Inflection Games. Yeah, that's it. And so former BioWare people from like the heyday of
Oh.
BioWare, like back in like the Mass Effect 1 and 2 days and
Mhm.
like early Dragon Age, So the new studio, and basically, it's got sort of a, an old school looking, like clothing, sort of. What's the era of that? What do you call that?
I guess like maybe settling America era, kind of like not conquistador, but
like sort of New World era.
Yes, New World is actually perfect. That's an excellent explanation for it.
And then so you're crafting what they call realm cards to like activate a portal.
Now I didn't remember. So this was revealed earlier, but I didn't recall there being a card system in it. Did you?
No, I don't remember seeing that either. But maybe this is like new information they're releasing.
Yeah.
But it seems like you're crafting cards, and they will like sort of influence maybe what's in like through the portal as you go through it, and you're like. Going in and sort of fighting strange creatures and maybe gathering like resources and stuff. And it seems like maybe there's like a building element to it as well. I still don't fully understand like what the game is.
Yeah, it is an MMO, right? Or is it not?
I have no clue. I'm not sure. It might be sort of a like a Valheim style game.
Yeah.
Where you're like building sort of a base, and then you're like venturing out and through these portals into these like strange areas to like gather resources and fight enemies, and then you come back and you like use the resources to build stuff.
It could be.
I'm not sure, but this is one I'm keeping an eye on for sure. And then next up, Saints Row.
Yes, so they have released on, I believe, most platforms except for Switch, the Boss Factory demo, where I guess in Saints Row the big boss, like you're just called the boss, you're like the main guy of the Saints Row gang, and so this whole presentation was about how you can super customize your guy or girl, and they showed a bunch of different iterations of things you can be. It seems like you can be like a vampire almost. They showed a picture of a guy and like recreated that guy.
It seemed like maybe you can take a picture of yourself and like somehow get that into the game so that it will like make a version of you in the game.
So you can download this right now on PlayStation or Xbox or PC. And I think it is just like you create I don't know if there's like after you create it, you can walk around an area or something, but they did it's similar to what they did with Black Desert Online back in the day, where they just released the ability to create a character and then you could play around with that. But that's fine. It's interesting. I don't know how into this I am yet, but I mean, it would make a great Monster Factory. I don't know if they're going to wait until the actual game comes out to do that, but
that's what I thought of too. I was like, I bet Monster Factory will do something with this. But. And then they showed Warhammer 40K Darktide.
Yes.
This is a sort of Left 4 Dead style, like 4-player co-op shooter.
Vermintide, I think, was very popular when it came out. I remember a lot of people playing it, and that was like the past. I don't know. There's a very rich and deep lore of Warhammer, and this seems like the present or the future era. It's not Vermintide. I think was ever like swords and sorcery era, and this seems more like people have guns, so it's like more modern era of Warhammer.
Yeah, it definitely seemed more like almost futuristic.
Yeah.
In some cases, but yeah, it's coming out September 13th for PC and Xbox. It's an Xbox console exclusive. And then next up, they showed Layers of Fear coming early 2023. I don't remember what this was.
Bloober Team. That's all I remember. The name of the people that made it is Bloober Team.
Bloober Team. Interesting.
It's like a scary game. Whatever. That's
I think I remember the trailer now. Yeah, scary game, not my thing.
Yeah.
And then they showed Gotham Knights coming out late October.
I'm gonna be honest. I looked at my phone during the Gotham Knights thing.
Yeah. Just not for me.
Yeah.
I wasn't super into like the graphical style of it, or like, and I don't really care about superheroes that much. Yeah. Next up, and the last thing, was Naughty Dog.
Yes. So, a couple different things to talk about. They always, I mean, I think the in The Last of Us, when it came out, the multiplayer of that, I think had a pretty strong following. It was interesting because you were kind of going around, everybody had craftable items. And I remember, I forget, somebody I was talking to me before I bought The Last of Us Remastered on PS4. They were like, "Oh man, you got to get this because the multiplayer is out of sight. It's crazy. It's so good." And I ended up never playing it. I just played the story. But everybody was always like, "Oh man, Last of Us Part 2, where's this multiplayer? It's going to be another great iteration of this thing that we loved back in the day." It never really happened. It's been like 2 years or whatever. And then Neil Druckmann was like, "Yeah, it kind of blew up and we're making it its own thing now. Like it doesn't make sense to release it as a part of Last of Us Part 2 because it's so much bigger. So it's its own game. It's got its own narrative. It has, other people in this universe. It'll move the story along, I assume. And they showed one piece of game art from it, and they were basically just like, more to come. But what did you think about this?
I'm curious how they will like weave story into like a multiplayer mode. But...
Yes, he said it was a very unique narrative that is unique to this game. So I don't know what that means. I also don't know what kind of game this is. Like, I wonder if it is a Tarkov style game. That would be interesting to me. If it was a thing where you're going into place and like there's an item economy, which would make sense for this setting. It's like not just a straight deathmatch game if there is another hook to it. I think that is possible. I also think there maybe could be a battle royale element, but I don't know how that would fit in fiction. I don't know. I think Tarkov games that's an unexplored. There's nothing really like Tarkov right now, and like the item economy, I think would really fit this setting. But I'll be interested to see. I probably will play this. I gotta say, if it's not just like a straight multiplayer game, if there is an interesting narrative, I would definitely pick this up because Naughty Dog makes great games.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear more about it. He said it was like it was a huge game.
Yeah.
So that made me think maybe they're going for like a giant map of some sort, and maybe it has some like battle royale elements to it. But...
In San Francisco, also we should say.
Mm-hmm. So
which we have not seen.
They said we'll see more next year about this, so it's gonna be a while before we hear any more info about it. So.
Now, here's something. Did you play Last of Us Part 2?
I did not.
Okay, well then never mind. I was gonna ask something about the plot, but I can look it up later. Okay. Then what else? They talked about the TV show for a while and showed some stills from it. I don't know about you, but I get a lot of people filming Last of Us series on TikTok. I'll get like people up in buildings like zooming in on Pedro Pascal, like running through a bunch of like broken down cars or like talking to the person who's playing Ellie. But they said the last day of filming is like tomorrow, so it's got to be coming soon. And he was like very cagey about it. Keighley was like, "Oh, so this is coming like next year," and Neil Druckmann was like, "You'll hear more about it soon." So maybe it's gonna get released this year. Who knows?
Yeah, hard to say. They also said that Troy Baker and I forget her name, but
Ashley
the voice
Johnson.
actress, they have small parts in the show as some characters that they were not specific about. And also Neil Druckmann directed one of the episodes.
And they are remaking The Last of Us Part 1 from the ground up for next-gen consoles, the definitive edition of Last of Us Part 1.
Yeah, and it's coming later this year, like not too far away, actually.
Yeah, September 2nd.
Did this surprise you? Like, it didn't seem to me like they needed to.
Yeah, I feel like the definitive edition just came out like 2 or 3 years ago. So, I mean, great that it's on PS5 and it like looks super nice, but I don't know. This is not necessarily a game I need to play again. Like, I would maybe play a Drake's Uncharted again, but it's just like it's just too dark. I feel like to play more than one time. So
for sure, that's my thought as well. Like, I would certainly replay like a remade Uncharted game before I would replay a Last of Us game.
But I mean, that's cool. I'm sure with the show, a bunch of people are going to want, because I mean, the show is not Last of Us Part 2, but it's definitely rooted in Last of Us Part 1. So I mean,
Yeah,
it's
that's a good point.
good synergy for people who watch the show and like it and want to play the original, but they only have a next-gen console.
Which, I mean, maybe the release date that they gave for the remake is some sort of hint as to when the show is going to pop up on HBO Max.
That would be crazy. So another weird thing happened. Keighley was like, "Oh, so like anything else going on?" And Neil Druckmann was like, "I don't know, man. Seems like I'm working on something." And Keighley was like, "What are you working on?" And Druckmann was like, "I don't know." And then Keighley was like, "Okay, sounds good." So like something else is happening, I guess.
I guess he's working on something, but that's all he had to say about it.
Do you think? Here's a little thought experiment. Definitely, there's going to be a Last of Us Part 3. With the way the second one ended, I feel like they really need to wrap it up, wrap a bow on it, and put that series to bed. I don't know if there's going to be any more Uncharted games. They definitely could make more, but I feel like the series ended on a really good note with the last one. It was called A Thief's End. What do you think the next Naughty Dog thing is going to be? Do you think it's going to be Last of Us 3, or do you think it's going to be some new IP? What do you think Druckmann's working on?
The last Uncharted of Us.
Whoa.
A crossover event in which Nathan Drake is...
in a post-apocalyptic...
it's post-apocalypse, but he's still out there going after all of those ancient, like, old things.
That's interesting.
But no, I have no idea. I wonder if they do something like wildly different. Like
I think it's. I don't think it'll be an Uncharted. I think it is between something wildly new and different and Last of Us Part 3. Because I feel like they are done writing Last of Us Part 3. I feel like with 2, similar to Back to the Future 2, how it ended with the lead up to Back to the Future 3. This is another example of something where they made 2 and they know exactly where 3 is going to go, I feel like.
Oh, okay. So you think they could easily like make Uncharted, The Last of Us Part 3?
I think so,
next.
Especially if the show does well. If they're just going to, the synergy is going to be there to just be like, well, guess what? More Last of Us. But I think you're right. It could also be a brand new IP. It's something new to start with. They've definitely been making Uncharted for long enough.
They seem to have like such a particular type of game that I almost don't know that I see them going in a wildly different direction. Like they could do something in that vein, but like just in a different setting.
Oh yeah, I agree. It'll definitely be a third-person action adventure with like very great narrative
story
and like
driven. Yeah.
But who knows? I mean, we could see something that's in space. Seems like everything's in space these days.
Yeah, space horror, you know.
Horror would be interesting.
And that was it. That was it for Summer Games Fest live.
Yes. So as far as my scorecard, it did not really deliver on my 3 favorite things. There was not a first thing that you didn't know what it was, and then it revealed what it was. They had some good reveals in the middle, but I would not say there were like great, crazy world premieres, or enough of them, I should say. And there was not a one more thing. He kind of was just like, that's it. We're done talking to Neil Druckmann. So like, here's what else is happening. So I don't know. What are your overall thoughts on this thing?
He did say to keep expectations lower and to sort of calibrate your expectations. So I can't like, it's not like he was teeing up for this massive show and getting everybody's expectations just off the charts only to deliver on something that was fairly underwhelming. But I mean, for what was available, I guess he did fine. But yeah, I do think the format of, you know, doing like an interesting opener leading into the show, and then like, you know, having something to have a one more thing at the end.
Yeah,
like that's sort of bare minimum, the elements that you need for a show like this.
Now here's something interesting. He did also say, guess what? Next year, Summer Games Fest is also happening digital and in person in June. And I just saw an article that E3 says they're coming back next year in June. So it's going to be a head-to-head, and I really wonder what's going to happen. I feel like Keighley has December nailed down. He's the only he's the only thing going on. Like, the Game Awards are just cemented now as something that happens every year. People are interested in it. He's going to continue to do it. It's going to be great. But I don't
Right.
know. This first part of June is contested. Like, if E3 comes back next year,
They got to try to one up each other.
yeah. Like, who's going to get who's going to get Sony and Microsoft? Like, right now, Keighley has the
Competition is
brand.
good.
Like,
Yeah.
everything is Summer Games Fest right now. But will Microsoft and Sony go back to E3 and be like the E3 branded press conferences? I don't know. I really wonder what's going to happen in a year from now.
Yeah, and what style will they
Great
do
question.
with E3?
Yeah, I don't know.
Will they go back to the old style E3 of like staged press conferences, and will they get like Sony and Microsoft to come back, or
I don't know.
how's that going to play out? But yeah, it seemed like Keighley did make somewhat of an effort to have that sort of E3 like stage presence feel to certain parts of the show. Like, I think they would bring out a dev like either before or after the trailer ran, and they would just talk about it for a little bit, and then they'd be like, here's some gameplay.
Yeah.
And so like there were moments in the show that did sort of feel like an old E3 show, as good as you could do for where we're at right now. But so I guess I give him some credit for that, but yeah, otherwise not the best sort of summer game or E3 show I've seen, but
I
can you
had
do?
the Day of the Devs was directly afterward on the same stream, so I had that on kind of in the background because I was looking up some stuff about Summer Games Fest. But the most interesting I saw out of that, I was glancing over every once in a while. They talked about a game called Animal Well, which is a Metroidvania pixel art style game, which right away is in my wheelhouse. But you're like a little dude, you're like a little circle, and it's very pixel arty, but it has like the dev was talking about how he has upgraded. He's using like a lighting engine, and he's really. It looks like a simplistic game because the palette is very dark, but it does have that like cool lighting that goes along with things. That's interesting. You don't usually see that in a pixel art game. But I love a Metroidvania, and I love pixel art, and this looked interesting to me, and the music also looked really cool. That's maybe the only thing I really want to talk about at Games Day of the Devs. You said you had something you saw that was interesting there?
Yeah, I liked what I saw of Planet of Lana.
Yes, yeah, that did look cool.
Coming to Xbox and PC later this year. They kind of described it as a little bit of like a Limbo Inside or Little Nightmares type of a game, where it's like a side-scrolling, like story-driven game.
Very
but like
beautiful,
with a
vibrant,
with like a far lighter tone. To like to everything, the setting and everything. Very beautiful art. And you have this. You play a character who's running around. You have this like cat-like creature with you who can like you can send through to like smaller spaces. So he can do something to help you get through like the level or through the area, and he can like interact with other things in the world. So in that sense, it almost gave me a little bit of Last Guardian vibes, because I don't know if it was maybe just like the made up language that he had when he was like talking to the cat-like creature, but it was like it sounded similar to that.
Man, Last Guardian's such a good game. Team Ico needs to. Is that what it's called? Team Ico?
I think so.
They need to make another game. If they still exist.
What happened to those guys?
So then Devolver Digital did their thing.
Yeah, really weird. I mean, it's Devolver Digital, so you expect it to be weird, but they had Pseudo51 there.
That was cool.
And he was like trapped in a robot, basically.
Yeah, so like previous years, I have enjoyed this. Not necessarily the comedy they try to do, but like they've had interesting games. And this one we were talking about before we started recording was very games light. I feel like they only showed like 4 or 5 games overall. It was only like it was like 28 minutes.
I wrote down 5 games, and it was like just over 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And it was mainly just them doing like a really weird like sketch that I just didn't understand.
Which that's fine. If like they're known for their weird stuff. I kind of liked the one where they were all eating hot dogs. I thought that was weird and amusing.
Well, yeah, that was funny. I'm not like I didn't laugh at this one.
No. But that's fine. I'm all about them being creative and getting to do this every year and bringing back the actors. That's all cool. But I don't know, man. I feel like you have to also
They didn't bring the games.
Yeah, you got to play more than 5 trailers,
Yeah, and there was one cool one in here that I thought.
Oh, I'm interested to see which one you thought was cool.
But they started off with Cult of the Lamb, which is coming August 11. Do you care about
No.
that game?
No, I don't.
And then they went to Angerfoot. Actually, that one kind of seemed cool.
I thought this was the one you were going to say. Yeah, I thought this was pretty interesting.
Yeah, you're almost like a green alien looking character.
It seemed like a Hotline Miami
person
style thing, but first person.
Yeah, and you're like kicking doors down and kicking enemies, and you're like, you do have a gun, it seems like.
Is it Hotline Miami? Is that the movie I'm thinking of? What game is it? Hotline Miami?
Yeah, that's the top-down twin stick shooter.
What's the movie?
Miami Vice?
Connection.
I don't know.
Anyway, okay, keep going. Yeah, Hotline Miami.
And then they showed a trailer for Card Shark, which I believe is already out.
Yeah, this I don't super care about this, I have to say.
Yeah, me neither. And the one that I kind of liked was the Plucky Squire.
Yes, this was interesting.
Yeah, so it starts off and it looks like a storybook, and you're like kind of looking down at the page of the book, and it's like sitting on a desk or something, and you're in like what appears to be like a kid's room. And then eventually you're basically controlling the character running around through the different pages, and each page has sort of a different sort of environment, and sometimes even a different perspective. Like sometimes it's side scrolling and sometimes it's like more third person. And then the character jumps out of the book and he's just like on the desk in the room, and you're like maybe exploring the room. Like I'm not even sure where it goes from there,
and it seems like you could jump into other 2D areas. Like there's a part where you were on a mug, kind of.
Oh yeah. Made me think of Super Mario Odyssey when you go into those like 2D sections, like the pixel.
Very similar to that. I'm sure it was inspired by something like that.
Sure. But yeah, this seemed cool to me. I kind of like the art style as well.
Yeah, the 3D parts looked almost not photorealistic, but they were very like almost tilt shift, where it was you got the real scale of it. Like it really did feel like you were a small thing in a big room.
Yeah, so I thought this was maybe the coolest thing that they showed. Mm-hmm. And then they did show Skate Story, I think was the name of it.
Oh, that was also interesting. Yeah, you're a demon made of glass and pain, as I recall, and you must skate.
Yeah, you must skate. I did think the art style of it was really cool, and the music was good. And yeah, you're skating around. I'm not super into skateboarding games, which is maybe the only reason why I would hesitate on this one, but yeah, it looked cool. And then I think if you like fall, since you're made of glass, you just like break.
Shatter.
So maybe there's like, I don't know, some sort of roguelike element. I'm not sure, but
yeah,
and that was it. That was all they had.
It was mostly the sketches, which is whatever. But yeah, I would maybe give this one a C. I have to say, I don't know if we need to rate all of them as they come along, but definitely, I was expecting a little bit more, because Devolver Digital usually has at least one thing that I'm like, oh, this is actually pretty cool. And I mean, the door kicker thing was interesting, and the glass.
Plucky Squire.
Yeah, the Plucky Squire was cool, but I don't know, man. It was also just like, it started and ended super quick. I felt like it had just begun as they were rolling credits.
And I know their show is usually shorter than most of the other ones because they're like just one publisher.
Yeah.
But usually they bring more games, and it's a little like there's more trailers. And I remember Devolver in the past couple of years being one of the more interesting shows, not just for like the sketch and the acting they're doing, but because they've got they bring a bunch of really cool looking games. And this year, not so much. And I was watching the comments too, and everybody was like, "Is that it? Like, is it over? Like, what?" So yeah, maybe we're still in a phase where pandemic has slowed down development cycles, and they just didn't have as much to show this year, but they still wanted to do something for Summer Games Fest.
So speaking of Summer Games Fest, looking forward, tomorrow I don't believe there's the Geeked Week, the Netflix Geeked Week I think is happening tomorrow. I don't know if I'm going to watch that, but I might look at like a recap. And then Saturday, there's some stuff that I think they're not affiliated with Summer Games Fest, but they are happening. There's a Wholesome Direct, which I don't believe is affiliated with Summer Games Fest, and a couple other things. And then Sunday is the Xbox Bethesda, but I guess it's not the whole thing, because this week they said, oh wait, there's going to be a part 2 on, I think, Tuesday of the next week, which, I don't know, what was your take on this? You think they're doing like a Nintendo Treehouse style thing with stuff they talk about on Sunday? Like they'll reveal it on Sunday and then the Tuesday thing is like going into more depth about it?
I would love that if they borrowed a page from Nintendo's playbook and did that, but
that's the vibe I got, but I don't know. Maybe they just had too much stuff, so they had to break it up. I'm still unclear.
My thought was maybe they're doing like the traditional like Xbox showcase on Sunday, and then this, or maybe the other way around, but like the second one is going to be all Bethesda.
Oh, so you think we
give them more time to show Starfield and Redfall and whatever else they're working on, because they did also just release like an expansion for ESO, and they've got Fallout 76 going, and I don't know, I feel like they've got a couple other things in the works as well.
Yeah, that is a lot to cram into one show that is only probably going to be like 2 hours.
Especially if you are trying to still allow for the deep dive that Bethesda is known for with its, big upcoming game. And there was a story I saw recently where I'm going to like butcher the wording of it, but they said basically that they expect Starfield to be like that big cornerstone game for them, like Skyrim has been for however long, They expect that to be like the big Bethesda game, and they've not really talked about game releases in that way for a number of years, I feel like.
I saw something.
Okay.
I saw TikTok, and I don't know where it got its information. But this TikTok claimed that in Starfield, you will not be able to climb ladders.
Does this matter?
Well, it's I guess indicative of the engine, because in no previous Elder Scrolls games or any Bethesda game have you been able to climb ladders.
Not a mechanic in particular I would miss from a game.
Just a weird quirk.
Well, what was that? Isn't there like a developer that like is extremely against having ladders in games because it like forces you to like get on a thing that you can only move in one direction and you can't really aim or shoot or do anything else, and it just like robs you of all of your like movement mechanics and abilities. True. And it's just sort of a like boring bit of gameplay that you can find other workarounds to avoid.
That's true. I mean, there's merit to that argument.
Yeah, so I kind of agree with that case. I don't know I don't recall which developer said that, but I agree. But yeah, I do have my concerns about the engine that they're working with, and so it'll be interesting to see what they have.
We shall see. I don't know when the next time we're going to record is. I don't know if we're going to wait to see the thing on Tuesday now that there's an extra Bethesda/Microsoft thing, or if we're going to do something this weekend. But
yeah, maybe we can do like a part 1, part 2 type of a thing.
And you never know. Nintendo might still reveal that there's going to be a Direct next week. We can only hope, but it would be very nice to see. Yeah. So we'll keep our ears
hope for
to the
Nintendo
ground.
For sure.
But yeah, this was just a quick little impromptu. We had to. It was necessary to get together.
It was necessary.
And we had to talk about this, so I'm glad we did.
I am as well, and I don't know that we will do episodes for stuff like the PC game show and like whatever the other one was, but I do think those shows are exciting and still fun.
Well, we'll wrap. I mean, unfortunately, it isn't like E3s of past where we could do one recording per show because there's just not that many shows, and we kind of have to. If all of them are similar to this Games Fest one, we're gonna want a couple of them to talk about because they're gonna contain stuff that we don't really care about.
Yeah, so it might be the case where we for sure do Xbox Bethesda.
Yeah.
And then we'll do like sort of a wrap type of a show like next week.
Yeah.
Just to talk about
overall
everything else in one go.
But I think that's going to do it for at least this part of the Game Fest talk thing that we've done, this podcast.
Yeah, go ahead and follow us on all the things, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter at Starside Cafe. I almost said Starside Chat. That's the name of the podcast. You can search for that on your podcast app of choice. You're probably already listening to it if you're hearing this. So, yeah, we will catch you on the next one.
We'll see you soon. Goodbye.
Goodbye.